Imagine holding, like, the psychological weight of an entire nation right on your shoulders. You're stepping onto the pitch on the world's biggest athletic stage. And the eyes of, 68,000 screaming fans inside the stadium are just totally glued to you?
Yeah, and millions more watching at home, right?
Exactly, millions at home. Now imagine doing all of that before you were even legally old enough to buy a celebratory beer. Okay, let's unpack this. Today we are looking at Spain's dramatic 4-0 demolition of Saudi Arabia in Group H of the 2026 World Cup.
It really is a staggering scenario when you frame it like that. We're dealing with an 18-year-old completely shifting the gravity of a global tournament.
Right.
But to truly understand what happened in this match, we have to look past the final scoreline. This is, a massive case study in tactical adjustments, the undeniable emergence of generational talent, and even the evolution of global sports media.
And we have a really brilliant stack of sources guiding us today. I mean, if you've been following the tournament, you know things have been completely wild.
Oh, absolutely wild.
Yeah. So we are pulling from on-the-ground match reports, granular player data, deep dives into the tournament officiating, and a really eye-opening look at who is actually bringing this tournament to our screens in the UK right now.
Which is a huge shift in itself.
Totally. So our mission today is to extract the ultimate insights on how Spain went from looking completely toothless just a few days ago to suddenly looking like the absolute tournament favorites. We're going to explore the historical records that tumbled in basically a 45-minute blitz.
Right.
The dire mathematical nightmare that's now facing Saudi Arabia, and the changing landscape of the broadcasting booth.
What's fascinating here is how a single player's return can act as like a psychological trigger for an entire squad. But we can't really talk about Saudi Arabia without talking about Cape Verde first.
Right, that opening game.
Yeah. Just a few days prior, Spain played Cape Verde. And Spain held all the possession. They were dictating the tempo, but there was just zero potency in the final third.
Yeah, it ended in a 0-0 draw, right?
Exactly. And manager Luis de la Fuente actually admitted his players were genuinely stung by the media criticism after that.
They look so blunt. I mean, you have all this world-class talent, and they just couldn't break down a resilient defense.
Yeah, they were completely stuck.
So if you were watching this game at home, you were probably wondering, why did they look so sluggish then and so incredibly lethal against Saudi Arabia? And the immediate answer that jumps out of our sources is Lamine Yamal.
The 18-year-old Barcelona superstar.
Exactly. He had been recovering from a hamstring injury he suffered back in April, which is why he only played a brief 20-minute cameo off the bench in that Cape Verde game.
Right, he wasn't fully fit.
No, not at all. But against Saudi Arabia, he was in the starting lineup from the very first whistle, and he didn't waste a single second. Just 10 minutes into the match, Mikel Oyarzabal whips this low, powerful cross toward the back post, and Yamal just comes sliding in at pace to steer it home.
It was a beautiful finish. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that goal puts Yamal in some absurd historical company.
Oh.
He is now the second youngest player in World Cup history to score an opening goal in a match. And the only person ahead of him, a 17-year-old named Pelé, who did it for Brazil against Wales back in 1958.
Just casually chasing Pelé's records. I mean, that is just surreal. And he barely missed out on another record, too, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. At 18 years and 343 days old, he is Spain's second youngest World Cup starter. He narrowly missed the record held by his teammate Gavi, who started at 18 years and 110 days old back in 2022.
Oh.
But Yamal's impact wasn't just historical, it was overwhelmingly statistical. In just one half of football, he registered 5 shots, completed 91% of his passes, and had a 100% dribble success rate.
Wait, hold on. I'm looking at those numbers, and I totally get the hype. It is like adding a high-octane additive to a sputtering engine.
That's a great way to put it.
But, I mean, it is incredibly easy to point to an 18-year-old prodigy and say he fixed everything. Didn't De La Fuente completely overhaul the starting lineup for this game?
He did, yeah.
It just feels a bit unfair to ignore the manager's role and, chalk this 4-0 win up to one teenager running fast.
No, I'm glad you brought that up because that is a crucial distinction to make. De La Fuente didn't just throw Yamal on the pitch and hope for a miracle.
Right.
He actually made 4 structural changes to the starting lineup that completely rewired Spain's attacking geometry. Yamal was the spark, sure, but De La Fuente built an entirely new engine around him.
Okay, so walk us through that geometry, because if you're a fan trying to understand the difference between the Cape Verde game and this one, it really comes down to how the players were positioned on the pitch.
Let's break it down. First, he brought in Pedro Porro at right back instead of Marcos Llorente.
Okay.
Porro provides a much more direct vertical offensive threat down that right side.
Okay.
Second, he brought in Dani Olmo to play as a dynamic number 10.
And for anyone unfamiliar with that specific role, what does a number 10 actually do?
Good question. So a number 10 operates in the pocket of space right behind the main striker and ahead of the midfield pivot.
And the pivot being the two central midfielders.
Exactly. The two central midfielders in this case, Pedri and Rodri, who sit back to distribute the ball.
So Olmo is essentially floating in like the hardest place for a defense to cover. He's constantly making the center backs guess if they should step up or stay back.
Precisely. It causes chaos. Third, De La Fuente started Alex Baena on the left wing, replacing Gavi. And Baena played a very clever role by inverting.
I always hear that term thrown around on broadcasts. What does inverting actually mean in practice?
So instead of hugging the left sideline like a traditional winger and just crossing the ball, an inverted winger constantly drifts inside toward the center of the pitch.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and by doing this, Baena completely overloaded the midfield. It leaves the Saudi right back totally confused about who he is supposed to mark, and it creates these massive numerical advantages for Spain in the middle of the park.
Right.
And finally, the fourth change was putting Yamal out on the right wing.
Which means you have Porro bombing down the right side, Baena sneaking into the middle from the left, Olmo hovering dangerously in the center, and Yamal just stretching the defense.
Exactly.
They went from being this blunt instrument against Cape Verde to a highly calibrated surgical tool.
The spacing was inherently better, The passing angles were sharper and the tempo was visibly higher. This tactical rewiring is exactly what allowed the 25-minute blitz that followed.
Yeah, that resulting explosion really did consume Saudi Arabia in record time. We have to talk about Mikel Oyarzabal because he put on an absolute masterclass.
He really did.
And this is a player who took a ton of heat for being practically invisible in the Cape Verde game.
Right, but the tactical shift benefited him more than anyone. Against Cape Verde, he was isolated. But against Saudi Arabia, because Baena was dragging defenders into the middle and Porro was stretching the right side, the Saudi defense was just fractured.
So there were gaps everywhere.
Gaps appeared that simply didn't exist 3 days prior.
And Oyarzabal ruthlessly exploited those gaps. I mean, he assisted Yamal's opener, and then he just completely took over the game.
It was amazing to watch.
In the 21st minute, a loose ball bounces around the box. Defender Aymeric Laporte nods it down, and Oyarzabal bundles it into the corner. Then, just 3 minutes later, we see the geometry you were talking about in action.
Right, the third goal.
It's this beautiful team move. Left back Marc Cucurella finds himself in acres of space to cushion a header. Dani Olmo flicks it on, and Oyarzabal just taps it in for a second goal. 3 goals in the opening 25 minutes.
That level of efficiency is staggering. Spain actually became the first team to score 3 goals in the first 25 minutes of a World Cup match, since Germany famously did it against Brazil in 2014.
Wow, that 7-1 game.
Yep, that one. And Oyarzabal individually made history, too. He became the fastest player in World Cup history to record 2 goals and an assist in a single match. He did it all in 24 minutes.
That is insane. And the underlying stats for this first half are just terrifying if you're a future opponent analyzing this tape. Spain finished the game with 71% possession.
Dominant.
They took 22 shots compared to Saudi Arabia's 3. And then there is the expected goals metric, or XG.
Which is such an important metric because it doesn't just measure the volume of shots. It measures the mathematical probability of a shot going in based on historical data.
Right.
So a tap in from 3 yards has a very high XG, while a wild strike from 40 yards has a tiny XG.
And Spain registered a massive 2.78 XG compared to Saudi Arabia's 0.14. So they didn't just have the ball, they generated incredibly high-quality scoring chances while completely suffocating the Saudi attack.
Absolutely.
Rodri, sitting in that midfield pivot, attempted 119 passes. He was basically the metronome dictating the entire rhythm of the game.
But, this raises an important question regarding tournament management.
Yes. Because if you have Yamal playing out of his mind and Oyarzabal breaking World Cup speed records, you might be wondering why a manager would sub both of them off at halftime.
It seems counterintuitive.
Right. When you have that kind of historic momentum, the instinct is to just step on the opponent's throat and go for a 7-0 or 8-0 scoreline to make a huge statement.
It is tempting, especially after the criticism they faced. But in tournament football, you really have to play the long game. The World Cup is a grueling marathon of fixtures packed tightly together.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And remember, Yamal is still managing that April hamstring injury. When you are up 3-0 at the half, The absolute smartest thing a manager can do is wrap their generational talent in bubble wrap, put him on the bench, ensure he is healthy for the knockout stages.
Protect the asset at all costs. Plus, I guess it gave De La Fuente a chance to test the depth of his squad in a low-pressure environment. He brought on Ferran Torres, Yeremy Pino, Mikel Merino, and Nico Williams. That fresh wave of attacking depth just kept the pressure dialed up, leading to the fourth goal just after the break.
Right, the corner kick.
Yeah. Baena whipped in a corner, Cucurella volleyed it, and it was ultimately forced in as an own goal by Hassan Al-Tambakti.
They nearly had a fifth goal, too.
Huh.
Ferran Torres scored what looked like a perfectly timed tap-in right at the end of stoppage time.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, but after a grueling, 3 to 4 minute VAR check, it was chalked off for the narrowest of offsides. The technology caught a shoulder leaning just a millimeter too far forward.
You could really hear the frustration in the crowd during that delay, which actually is a perfect moment to look at the environment of the match itself.
It was quite a setting.
A 4-0 masterclass for Spain is an absolute structural nightmare for Saudi Arabia. This game was played at Atlanta Stadium, packed to the brim with 68,239 fans. It was a sweltering 88 degrees outside with brutal humidity.
But the roof was closed.
Exactly. The retractable roof was closed, keeping the playing conditions at a pristine, climate-controlled 72 degrees.
A completely perfect environment for Spain's high-tempo, intricate passing game. There was no wind, no heat fatigue. But for Saudi Arabia, those pristine conditions left them with nowhere to hide. Their defensive flaws were just exposed under a microscope, and they are now facing a genuine crisis.
They drew 1-1 with Uruguay in their opener, so they currently have 1 point. How bad is this 4-0 loss for their actual chances of staying in the tournament?
Well, because of the new expanded 48-team World Cup format, the math gets incredibly complicated.
Okay.
The top 2 teams in each group automatically advance alongside the 8 best third-place teams across all the groups.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia plays Cape Verde next. They absolutely have to win that game to reach 4 points.
Right.
But they aren't just fighting for points now, they're fighting an algebraic nightmare. Goal difference is the primary tiebreaker for those third-place spots.
Oh, wow. So a 4-0 loss in the group stage is functionally worse than losing 2 games by 1 goal each.
Significantly worse. Conceding 4 goals might have mathematically doomed them before they even step on the pitch for their final match, depending on how the other groups shake out.
That's rough.
A -4 goal differential means they don't just need to beat Cape Verde. They likely need a blowout win, maybe 4-0 or 5-0 themselves, just to get their goal difference back to 0 and have a fighting chance at a tiebreaker.
That is a brutal mountain to climb. And speaking of brutal margins, navigating a World Cup match also means dealing with the referee.
Always a huge factor.
We need to talk about the man in the middle with the whistle for this match, Brazilian referee Rafael Claus. Our sources note he has a well-known reputation for letting physical play slide.
He really does.
He averages only 4.41 yellow cards and a tiny 0.14 red cards a game. Playing with a ref like Claus is kind of like driving on a highway where the speed limit is 65, but everyone knows the cops won't pull you over until you hit 80. You know you can push the boundaries of a tackle without getting booked.
That's a great analogy. Managing the psychology of a lenient and sometimes highly controversial referee is a hidden skill set for elite teams. You aren't just playing the opponent, you're playing the referee's threshold.
Right.
Claus is incredibly experienced. He's officiated Copa Libertadores knockout rounds, the 2022 World Cup, and the 2024 Copa America final between Argentina and Colombia. But he brings a lot of baggage onto the pitch.
Yeah, the sources mention a pretty intense history with some of the biggest names in the sport.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, back in 2020, during a tense World Cup qualifier, he famously clashed with Lionel Messi.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Claus awarded a penalty against Argentina and later disallowed a Messi goal after a VAR review. It led to a very heated, very public confrontation on the pitch, where Messi was visibly furious with how the game was being managed.
Wow.
But the controversy goes beyond just player disputes. In October 2025, there was a leaked audio recording from the Brazilian FA that caused a massive scandal.
Wait, leaked audio from the actual VAR booth?
Yes. During a domestic match, Claus was caught on tape telling the VAR booth that he had stopped play for a foul. But the video feed clearly showed he had allowed the game to continue playing.
Oh, that's bad.
It created a massive uproar in Brazil about his reliability and potential domestic bias. So when international teams see his name on the assignment sheet, they know they have to navigate a referee who lets heavy tackles go, but who also has a history of highly volatile, unpredictable VAR interventions.
It adds an entire layer of psychological warfare to the match. You have to execute your manager's tactical geometry, manage your own stamina, and constantly calculate exactly how far you can push the referee before he snaps.
Exactly. And explaining those complex hidden narratives, the algebraic nightmare of goal difference, the geometry of an inverted winger, the psychological warfare with the referee is exactly why the broadcasting booths covering this tournament have evolved so dramatically.
Which brings us to our final topic. We've discussed the players on the pitch and the official managing them, but who is actually interpreting all of this tactical complexity for the millions of people watching at home?
Right.
The sources highlight an incredibly pronounced shift in the UK broadcasting landscape for this 2026 World Cup, specifically looking at the BBC and ITV.
The roles of female presenters and analysts have fundamentally transformed.
They really have. We are looking at absolute heavy hitters taking the central, most prominent roles on television. For the BBC, you have Alex Scott, Gabby Logan, and Kelly Cates leading the studio coverage.
Yep.
They're sitting alongside former elite professionals like Steph Houghton, Ellen White, and Rachel Corsi. Over on ITV, Laura Woods and Semra Hunter are the lead studio anchors, and they are bringing in elite coaching minds like Emma Hayes, former players like Karen Carney, and referee analyst Christina Unkel.
It is a remarkable shift in how the sport is presented to the public.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Why is having this specific mix of former elite pros and career broadcasters so critical to how we as fans understand the game today?
Because modern World Cup coverage demands so much more than just basic play-by-play and reciting the halftime score.
Right.
The tactical complexity of the game has exploded over the last decade. As a fan, you don't just want to know that Spain scored. You want to know why Oyarzabal was suddenly open. You need an elite coaching brain like Emma Hayes to deconstruct how De La Fuente rewired Spain's midfield pivot in real time.
And when a goal is disallowed after a 4-minute delay, you need an expert like Christina Unkel to explain the specific legal framework and micro margins of the VAR offside rule.
Exactly. For years, women in sports broadcasting were frequently relegated to the sidelines. They were doing quick injury updates or interviewing fans outside the stadium.
Yeah, that was the standard.
But now, they are the central studio anchors and the lead tactical analysts driving the entire global narrative of the men's game. They have the elite experience required to decode the modern game. They aren't on the periphery of the event anymore. They are at the very center of how we experience and understand it.
It makes the coverage richer, smarter, and infinitely more engaging for the viewer. So what does this all mean? Let's bring all these threads together.
Sure.
We started with a Spanish team that looked totally lost against a tiny island nation. But through targeted tactical geometry by Luis de la Fuente, specifically utilizing the number 10 role and inverted wingers, and the historic, electrifying insertion of an 18-year-old Lamine Yamal, they delivered a 25-minute blitz that fundamentally dismantled Saudi Arabia.
Leaving Saudi Arabia facing an impossible math problem regarding their goal difference, and proving that Spain has the tactical depth to win this entire tournament.
Yeah.
And we get to watch all of this unfold while being guided by the most tactically astute broadcasting booths the sport has ever seen.
It's incredible. So, turning to you listening right now, what stands out to you? Is it the sheer dominance of a manager making a subtle tactical shift that completely breaks open a defense? Or is it the staggering reality that an 18-year-old kid can comfortably carry the weight of a nation's expectations on his shoulders?
It completely redefines our understanding of pressure.
It really does. And it leaves me with this one final thought to chew on. If players like Lamine Yamal and Pelé before him can literally alter the course of World Cup history before they are even legally adults, how will the timeline of an athlete's prime shift in the coming decades? We always thought of a player's peak being 27 or 28 years old, but if 18 is the new peak, what does the back end of a career look like in the modern era of advanced sports science, cryotherapy, and hyper-managed minutes? Are we going to see 15-year-olds dominating the 2030 World Cup while 40-year-olds are still anchoring the midfield?
The human body, aided by modern science, is pushing the boundaries in both directions.
It is a wild frontier for the sport. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It's been an absolute blast exploring the tactics, the history, and the margins of this match with you, and we will catch you on the next one.